endlessly searching for an original soul.
空へ空へ高き空へ向かい咲きし花よ時の上乱さえ踏み越えて咲けあでやかに振り向きもせず花は咲いて散りゆくその生き様糸強く潔く愛おしき人がごとあされども背負う夢はあまりに重くただ見守るもどかしさこの胸にしまいて今宵も祈る分け合いたいもし許されるなら明日の手がかりはその背中次の時まで空へ空へ瑠璃の空へ向かい開く夢よ闇に燃え盛る夜桜よ咲け鮮やかに
By the way, apparently one of these has to do with vampires. Alright, welcome proper to this game. So we're going to try to go through this entire series eventually. I have another visual novel that I'm really excited to do, but I've got to wait for it to actually arrive. So welcome to chapter 1. First, I'm going to save. Because I don't trust this. This is the Otomi game. I'm not playing the other one on here. I don't want to get in trouble. Okay, now it's saving. That is so weird. Was it morning? What happened to me? I attempted to recollect myself. Yes. Right. All at once, the events of the previous night rushed back to me. This isn't my room. My limbs were snugly bound in tight knots, so all I could do was wriggle around in bed, twisting the blankets around me. I yearned for the comfort of my own futon, but the futility of such thoughts only forced me to confront the reality of my situation. If only I could wake from this strange nightmare. But I could not. Those men from the night before must have taken me with them to the headquarters of the Shinsegumi. Shinsegumi, a military unit made up of Ronin, the purpose of which was to restore public order in Kyoto and counteract the local anti-shogunate forces. What will happen to me now? I inhaled deeply, laying down to wait my fate. It was that moment that the door slid open, and a kind-looking man stepped through.
目が覚めたかい？すまんな、こんな扱いで。今、縄を緩めるから少し待ってくれ。
His smile quirked as he removed my ropes. My wrists, however, were left bound. And you are...
ああ、そうか。私はね、井上源三郎というんだ。
Genzaburo Inao, captain of the Shinsegumi's 6th Division. A native of Edo, he studied swordplay with Kondo, Hiji, and Okita. He is sometimes referred to as Gen by his close friends. Thank you, Inaoi.
さて、ちょっと来てくれるかい？今朝から幹部連中であんたについて話し合っているんだが、ゆうべあんたが何を見たのか確かめておきたいってことになってね。
Okay. I nodded curtly and struggled to stand, but my body was sore from being bound up all night. Inao treated me with something like courtesy, but it was clear that I was in a lesser position. He must have been able to guess my thoughts, however, because he smiled at me and winked.
心配しなくても大丈夫さ。なりは怖いが気のいい者たちばかりだよ。
Oh? Even at home, I heard rumors of the vicious Shinsengumi that were unflattering. It was hard to imagine that the people in charge of such an organization were gentlemen.
一番年の若い東堂君は君よりちょっと年上くらいだよ。それに長倉君と原田君という賑やかな二人組もいるから大丈夫。
Despite Inao's reassurance, it was difficult for me to trust what I was hearing as accurate. Excuse me? Inao led me to a room and opened the door. I stepped inside and found myself surrounded by the leaders of the Shinsengumi. Their eyes dug into me like sharp knives. I stared before me and then gulped nervously.
Ohayo. 昨日はよく眠れた?
No, you bound me up. That was not comfortable. It's not one of my kinks. Sorry. Well, it wasn't particularly comfortable.
そうなんだ。さっき僕が声をかけた時には、君、全然起きてくれなかったよね。幸せそうな寝顔で、ぐっすりだったみたいだけど。
What?
からかわれているだけだ。掃除はあんたの部屋になど行ってない。
Quiet silence as I stared at Okita. Soji Okita, captain of the Shinsengumi's 1st Division. He is a native of Edo. His brilliant prowess as a swordsman developed by training with Kendo, with Kondo, and Hiji. Welcome. With his grin still spread along his face, he glanced over to Saito.
もう少しこの子の反応を見たかったんだけどな。はじめくんもひどいよね。勝手にバラすなんてさ。
I don't think Saito did anything wrong. You, on the other hand...
おいてめえら、無駄口ばっか叩いてんじゃねえ。
Hijikata's voice brooked no further. Insubordination. Okita shrugged and fell silent, but the smile lingered through his bright eyes. Toshizo Hiji, the commander of the Shinsengami, he is Kondo's longtime friend who helped form the Shinsengami in Kyoto. Kondo calls him Toshi.
でさ、土方さん。
The man who spoke was, well, he looked more like a boy than a man. Maybe this is the youthful Shinsengami captain that Inao was describing to me? I'd imagine the leaders of the Shinsengami to be older, maybe even middle-aged men, but their faces were still blessed with youth. In fact, one might even confuse them at first glance for a gang of bohemian thugs.
ちっちゃいし細っこいな。まだガキだろこいつ。
お前がガキとか言うなよ、平助。
だな。世間様から見りゃ平助もこいつも似たようなもんだろうよ。
ガキ扱いしていいのは俺みたいな立派な大人になってからだぜ。
立派な大人って、ま、新八が言っても説得力も何もねえがな。
Two nearby men replied to Taudo with very mocking but lighthearted tones. Hisuki Tauro, captain of the Shinzagami's 8th Division. He is a native of Edo. He is the youngest captain and is known for being particularly energetic. I somewhat recalled Inao's description of the two energetic members. His mention of them was brief, but seeing them in person was an eye-opening experience. He said the short-haired one was Nagakura, and the other with long hair was Harada. Let's see. Shinpachi Nagakura, the captain of the Shinsengami 2nd Division. He is a native of Edo and a skilled swordsman. He is upbeat and cheerful, and he frequently helps raise the morale of the men he commands. Does they show the other one? Nope.
うるさいな。おじさん二人は黙ってなよ。
ふざけんなよこのお坊ちゃまが。俺らにそんな口聞いていいと思ってんのか？
That's right, I only come back whenever there's a visual novel.
平助におじさん呼ばわりされるほど年は食ってねえよ。シンパチはともかく、俺はな。
てめえ、裏切るのか佐野。
へへ、シンパッツァン図星されて怒るって大人げねえよな。
Their back and forth report seemed developed into a rhythm from years of friendship, which predated my arrival and made me foreign here. I sensed something apart from curiosity towards me, though, like a feeling of animosity. Yeah. Despite their cheerful levity, they had not forgiven my presence among them. Suddenly, I wanted very much to go home. I wanted to leave this place and never return. Well, if you guys want, I can return once a week. I'm sure that Eldritch Abomination wouldn't mind me showing up on stream. My chest tightened, and I stared down, hoping to wake up in bed with all of this only a memory.
口さがない方ばかりで申し訳ありません。あまり怖がらないでくださいね。
Oh. His voice was calm and warm, and I felt myself relax, even if only a little bit.
何言ってんだ。一番怖いのはあんただろう、三男さん。
Kaisuke Sanan, a colonel in the Shinsengami. He is a native of Edo. He acts primarily as a consultant to the chief of the Shinsengami. As he finished speaking, the rest of the men nodded solemnly in agreement. I wonder who could possibly command such fear and respect from these men.
おや、心外ですね。皆さんはともかく、鬼の副長まで何をおっしゃるんです？私はいつだって新選組の規範を第一に考えているだけですよ。その規範、ご法度を決めたのは土方君、君じゃなかったですか？
確かに決めたのは俺だ。だが、今はそんなことを言ってる時じゃねえだろうが。
And the men called Sanan and Hiji stared at one another with a smirk.
トシと三男君は相変わらず仲が良いな。
Hiji and Sanan sounded distant when they spoke to one another, not exactly friendly. Still, the man who spoke had certainly sounded as though he thought they were friends.
ああ、自己紹介が遅れたな。俺が新選組局長、近藤勇だ。
Isami Kondo, one of the founders of the Shinsengami, an organization created to help keep peace in Kyoto. He is originally from Edo. Edo, because I know people are going to fight. I think it is Edo. When you say chief, do you mean to say you are the most important man in the Shinsengami?
いや、まあ、俺が偉いわけじゃない。皆の代表ということだよ。それから、そこの都市が副長で、横にいる三男君は総長を務めていて。
いや、近藤さん。なんでいろいろ教えてやってんだよ、あんたは。
まずいのか？
Add donuts? No. Yep, Edo. Edo. Add donuts. You guys are awful.
情報を与える必要がないんだったら黙ってる方が得策なんじゃないですかね。
わざわざ教えてやる義理はないと思うけど。
確かにそうなんだが、紹介しないことには話が進まんだろ
う。Harada glanced over at Kon. I'm just gonna call him at Kon and let out a bark of laughter.
ま、ここまで来たら知られて困ることもねえけどな。
Kon had looked rather disappointed then when Hiji spoke, but he perked up at Harada's words. Despite knowing him for 5 minutes, it's easy to see that his words resonated well with his men. He had a sort of charisma that simply drew you in, a man who was impossible to hate.
さて、本題に入ろう。まずは改めて昨晩の話を聞かせてくれるか。
はい。昨晩京の都を夜間巡察中に不老の老師と遭遇。相手が刀を抜いたため切り合いとなりました。一部の大使らが老師を無力化しましたが、その折彼らが失敗した様子をこの者に目撃されています。
As he finished, Saito turned to look at me. I didn't see anything, honest. Even with my insistence, Hiji continued to stare at me with a harsh glance. Saito remained expressionless, and the smile on Okita's face didn't change.
なあ、お前本当に何も見てないのか？
Yes, I didn't see anything. I'm blind as a bat.
見てないんならいいんだけどさ。
Hey, welcome, Thai.
あれ、掃除の話じゃお前が大使どもを助けてくれたって話だったが。
No, that's not true at all. I glanced over at Akita, but his smile remained. Whatever he was thinking was a mystery to me. I was running away from the Ronin. Then some people with Shinsengami uniforms appeared. Really, they sort of rescued me.
つまり、大使どもが老師を切り殺してる場面はしっかり見たってわけだな。
I couldn't exactly deny that. However, I knew that choosing to stay silent would implicate me deeper than lying would.
つまり最初から最後まで一部始終を見てたってことか。お前、根が素直なんだろうな。それ自体は悪いことじゃないんだろうが。
I wasn't sure what to make of Harada's words. My presence seemed bad for the Shinzagami. Would their next words be ones condemning me to death for being at the wrong place and time? My voice shook, but I knew I had to try. I won't tell anyone, I promise!
偶然老子に絡まれていたという君が私たちに敵対するものとまでは言いませんが、君に言うつもりがなくとも相手の誘導尋問に乗せられる可能性はある。
His voice was still warm, but his words were cold, and I began to feel my chances at life slip away.
話さないというのは簡単だが、この者が新選組に義理立てする理由もない。
Well, this game was originally a PSP game, and then a PlayStation 3 game.
約束を破らない保証なんてないですし、やっぱり解放するのは難しいですよね。ほら、殺しちゃいましょうよ。口封じするならそれが一番じゃないですか。
But
掃除、物騒なことを言うな。お上の民をむやみに殺して何とする。
そんな顔しないでくださいよ。今のはただの冗談ですから。
あんたは冗談に聞こえる冗談を言え。
After being rebuked by Saito, Akita gave a playful smile.
しかしなんとかならんのかね。まだこんな子供だろ
う。私も何とかしてあげたいとは思いますが、うっかり漏らされでもしたら一大事です。さて、私は副長のご意見を伺いたいのですが、いかがですか、土方副長。
The man looked at Hiji, and listening intently, he sighed and glanced around the room.
俺たちは昨晩、指導に背いた大使を粛清した。こいつはその現場に居合わせた。
それだけだとおっしゃりたいんですか？
実際このガキの認識なんざその程度のもんだとは思うんだが。
けどよ、こればっかりは大義のためにも内密にしなきゃなんねえことだよな。新選組の大使は血に狂ってるなんて噂が立ちゃ、俺らのタイムにだって支障が出るぜ。
Shin words made sense to everyone. Hiji's face looked grim.
おい、言葉を慎め。俺は指導に背いた大使を粛清したと言ったはずだぞ。
でもまあ、どっちみち見たことは変わらないんですけどね。
宗司の意見にも一理あると思うが、まあ俺は土方さんや近藤さんの決定に従う。
俺は逃がしてやってもいいと思う。こいつは別にあいつらが血に狂った理由を知っちまったわけでもないんだしさ。
What do you mean, everything? I couldn't help but wonder aloud, and the mood in the room shifted to an icy silence.
スケ、余計な情報をくれてやるな。
悪い。
ああ、これでますます君の無罪放免が難しくなっちゃったね。
男子たるもの、死ぬ覚悟くらいできてんだろ。お前も諦めて腹くくっちまいな。
A man? Oh, that's right. They still believe me to be a boy. With everything else that had happened, I'd completely forgotten how I was dressed.
確かに潔く死ぬのも男の道だな。俺も若い頃は切腹したし。
佐野の場合、まだ生きてるけどな。
Hold on. Their jokes were barbaric, but they both broke into raucous laughter.
副長、結論も出ないことですし、一旦この者を部屋に戻してはどうでしょうか。同席させた状態で誰かが機密を漏らせば、処分も何も殺すほかなくなります。
Sorry. He was right. If I remained with them, then I could easily hear something that I wasn't supposed to. I didn't think he'd mention it for my sake, but rather as a possible concern for their group. I was still relieved when he brought it up.
そういうことにするか。ちょっと調べたいこともあるしな。
私もその判断には賛成しますよ。ここには迂闊な方も多いですしね。
三男さん、わざわざこっち見て言うとかきついよ。
まあ仕方ねえよ。迂闊なのは俺らの担当だろう。主に平助とかな。
そんな責めるなよ。俺だって悪気はなかったんだからさ。
I could hear Toto's voice rise as everyone turned to look at him. He looked at them for a bit, then turned to me and mumbled in a voice I could barely hear.
あのさ、 悪かったな。
I was still apprehensive about what they might do to me, so I couldn't quite respond to him well. But he seemed to understand, and I curtly managed to nod. It was the most I could manage.
それじゃ斉藤、こいつを頼む。
承知しました。
All right. Warrior record has been unlocked. After returning to my room, I'd spent some time reflecting upon my state and my still bound hands. The rumors spoke of the Shinsengami as vicious men, but they seemed more intimate, human to me. Still, their presence or their being lingered through me, as if to say, we are not killers, but to protect our code, we must bring death. Remaining here is only bringing me closer to the possibility of them killing me. I don't know if I can convince them to spare me. Just as I have no loyalty to them, they have no loyalty to me, only the Shinsengumi. But then, they mention a man must always be ready to face death, or so they're still mistaking me for a man? Could I possibly risk exposing my true identity in exchange for mercy on my life? But this could just as easily backfire for me, and it could exact an even worse fate. I was truly at a loss for what to do. Nope, that's not what I want. That's what I want. Thank you. Alright, guys. Should we find a way to escape, or attempt to explain my situation? It is completely up to you guys. It is true that it might be better to explain. Seems like explaining is already winning this one. This is an Atomi game. Welcome. Well, I would tell them the truth. Perhaps if I did, they'd understand my dilemma. Perhaps they think I'm from Kyoto as well. If I told them I'd only just arrived in Kyoto, they might lower their guard, or so I hoped. I didn't know anyone in Kyoto, and I had only come to look for my father. I haven't even told them I'm a girl. The rest perhaps could wait, but I felt that it might be wise to tell them I was a girl. I took a deep breath and screamed loudly, "Excuse me, is anyone here?" After a few moments, the door slid open, and several faces appeared around the edges.
大胆だなお前さん。囚われの身分で俺らを呼びつけるなんてよ。で、自分から声をかけてくるなんざ、そろそろ腹も決まったのか。
No, that's not it. I want you to hear me out.
おそらくあんたの事情は汲めないだろう。それでよければ話すといい。
お前の運のなさには同情する。まあ、成仏してくれない。
ほら、男なら諦めが肝心だろ。
They all spoke as if they'd already Alright, that's it. To death. It was time for me to make my choice. Decided to tell them why I'd come to Alright. As Sato turned to go, I rounded on Toto to glare at him furiously.
なんだよ。
Earlier you said a man should know when to accept his fate. You don't think there's anything wrong with killing a man before hearing him out?
お前さ、口の利き方に気をつけろよ。自分がどんな立場かわからないわけ。そっちこそ男らしい態度取れば、俺らの事情を素直に受け入れればいいだろう。
But I'm not a man. Oh, that face. Oh, that face is perfect.
もしかしてさ、女とか。
Yes.
ちょっと待てって。
それは
ま、確かにそんな感じだな。体の線が女性的で柔らかいというか。
そんなもんわかるか。普通女は袴なんて履かねえだろうが。
女子でも薙刀や馬術の際に袴は用いるぞ。この者のように旅姿に男装をするのは珍しいが、身を守る処世術と言えなくもない。
なるほど、そういうこともあるかもな。いろいろ言って悪かった。
I don't know if that was good or not. Well, I'm glad that was cleared up.
あんたの言う通り、せめて事情くらいは聞いてやるべきだろうな。
Judging by the calmness in Saito's demeanor, it seemed he was unsurprised by my attempt to dress like a boy. There I was, surrounded once again by the leaders of the Shinsengami. SOA, what the hell is SOA? I can't remember.
少年にしては華奢で可愛らしい顔をしていると思っていたんだが、まさか本当に女子だったとはな。
Oh, I only know Sword Art Online Abridged. Khan was nodding his head repeatedly, as if he were agreeing with the very intelligent suggestion. For him to notice the softness of my features, it flattered me a bit.
まあ、女だって聞いてから見ると、女にしか見えなくなってくるんだよな。
しかし女の子を一晩縄で縛っておくとは悪いことをしたね。
でもよ、女だって言うが別に証拠はないんだろ。
Proof?
証拠も何も一目瞭然だろうが。なんなら脱がせてみるか。
許さんぞ。衆目の中、女子に肌をさらさせるなど言語道断。
だがまあ、それが一番手っ取り早いと思ったんだ。無理にとは言わないがな。
でもよ、本当に女だって言うなら殺しちまうのも忍びねえよな。
何甘いこと言ってるんだ。男だろうが女だろうが性別の違いは生かす理由にならねえだろう。
もっともです。ですが女性に限らず、そもそも人を殺すのは忍びないことですよ。今日の治安を守るために組織された私たちが無益な殺生をするわけにはいきません。
結局女の子だろうが男の子だろうが今日の平安を乱しかねないなら話は別ですよね。
The Shinzengami had already suffered a very gruesome reputation in Kyoto. If rumors spread that their men were thirsty for blood, things weren't likely to go well for them. Kyoto would banish them, and with no one to protect the people, the city would erupt into chaos. Each of their members deeply understood the consequences of behaving rashly in these times.
悪いが、お前の荷物を改めさせてもらったぜ。どうやら江戸からここまで一人で来たみてえだな。荷物はわずかな着替えと一月分の小銭、それと数通の手紙とこの小太刀。手紙には幕府御殿医の松本良順の名前があった。おそらくそこを訪ねたんだろう。お前の目的は何だ？
The minute my name was spoken, the vibe in the room shifted immensely. Everyone wore a stunned expression, eyes wide, and no words were uttered in response until...
土方さん、その名前は。
おいおい、偶然にしちゃできすぎだぜ。
まあ待て。それを判断するためにも、まずは君の話を聞かせてくれるかな。
At Khan's behest, I stood up to speak. My name is Anon. Under the watchful eyes of the leaders, I sharply described how I came to face them, how I lived in Edo, how I'd come to Kyoto to find my father, how lonely the city felt before I arrived.
そうか。出身も江戸だったのだな。父上を探して遠路はるばる京に来たのか。してお父上は何という方かね。
My father's name is Kyoto.
つながったな。
What are you talking about?
あなたが持っていた手紙の筆跡、これはまさに光道さんのものでしたが、まさか本当に光道さんのご息女とはね。
You know my father? The silence was enough to tell me that the revelation of my parentage caused a pronounced change in their behavior.
どこまで知ってる？
Huh? What information are you talking about?
いいから洗いざらい全部吐け！何しに今日に来やがった！
I just came looking for my father. I swear I didn't know anything else.
親父の光道さんが何をしてるか知っててここに来たんだろうが！
I was only aware of my father being in Kyoto for his medical work. But I haven't seen him since last summer. That's all I know.
土方君、どうやら本当に何も知らないのかもしれませんよ。
So what do you know about my father? Where is he right now? Please tell me.
光道さんの行方は現在新選組でも探している。
You're after my father? So this means...
勘違いしないでね。僕たちは光道さんを狙ってるわけじゃないから。
I see. A huge wave of relief came over me.
同じ幕府側の協力者なんだけど、実は彼、夏から行方知れずなんだよね。
幕府をよく思わない者たちが光道さんに目をつけた可能性が高い。
Ah! I let out oh, that was a gasp. Ah! I let out an audible gasp, but Saito continued without paying me any
生
mind.
きている降参も高い。乱方医は利用価値がある存在だ。
I wasn't sure what else to do, so I nodded. My heart pounded in my chest, threatening to burst onto the floor.
近藤さん、どうでしょうか。同じ人物を探す者同士、彼女に手を貸してあげてはいかがかと。
手を貸すとはどういうことかね。
光道さんが見つかるまで互いに協力し合うということです。彼女に協力してもらうことで光道さんが見つかる可能性は格段に上昇するでしょう。
Huh?
私たちがいくら探しても姿形を変えられてしまっては見抜くことは難しい。ですが光道さんの娘である君ならば身なりが変わっていようと看破できますね。
Yes, of course. I nodded as I spoke, while giving him what I hoped seemed like a steady, reassuring smile.
それに彼女が手中にあるというのは何かと都合がいいと思います。
どうだトシ。三男君の意見に俺は賛成だが。
こいつが本当に何も知らねえって言うんなら。
It's all true. All I know is that my father headed to Kyoto, but I don't know anything else. And about last night, I didn't see anything.
まあ、あの乱暴医の娘となりゃ殺しちまうわけにもいかねえか。
His eyes narrowed as he looked down at me.
昨べの件は忘れるって言うんなら、父親が見つかるまでお前を保護してやる。
君の父上を見つけるためならば、我ら新選組は協力は惜しまんとも。
Thank you so much. I never imagined something like this. I was elated to have escaped death. But not only had I survived, but I found my first decent lead.
殺されずに済んでよかったね。とりあえずはだけど。
He gave me that same wolfish grin. There was no denying that my situation was still less than desirable, but it didn't matter for now. Yeah, I'm very glad. Against all odds, at least I had found help where I'd never expected it, the Shinsengami. My first day in Kyoto was quite the adventure. In spite of everything I'd seen, my fortune was improving with every step. I still had a long way to go, but keeping positive was my only hope.
雪村くん、よかったね。これからはよろしく頼むよ。
Yes, thank you. It's a pleasure for me as well.
なあ、ゲンさん。女子となれば、ここのような男女体では申し訳ない気がするんだが。
ええ、そうですね。これはちょっと困りましたな。
Khan crossed his arms and thought deeply.
不便があれば言うといい。その都度可能な範囲で対処しよ
う。Thank you.
まあ、女の子となりゃ手厚くもてなさんといかんよな。
新八さん、女の子に弱いもんな。でもだからって手のひら返すの早すぎ。
いいじゃねえか。これで豚書が華やかになると思えば、新八に限らずはしゃぎたくもなるだろう。
Headquarters. The headquarters of the Shinsengami. It was located in the Mibu area, and it was where members lived and took their meals. I wasn't entirely sure I believed that sentiment.
とはいえ、ここでは女性として扱うのは難しそうです。大使として扱うのもまた問題ですし、彼女の処遇は少し考えなければなりませんね。
なら誰かの交渉にすりゃいいだろう。近藤さんとか三男さんとか。
Page, an assistant to a samurai or noble, traditionally a young man.
やだな、土方さん。そういう時は言い出しっぺが責任取らなくちゃ。
ああ、そうだな。都市のそばなら安心だ。
そういうことで土方くん、彼女のことよろしくお願いしますね。
I like the chat. Yeah, lads, no more walking around in the buff anymore. I don't think she'd mind that.
てめえら、勝手に決めてるんじゃねえ!
As I watched their back and forth, some of my earlier relief began to ebb away. And this was how the Shinsengami came to look after me. We have a new family,